Well, hey everyone, thanks for joining this episode of the Union podcast. And we call it the Union because it is the union of technology, people, and AI and systems. So it's the combination of all, and I've got a new combination of Chris and John today. We're going to talk about AI and automation. Have you? So John, I wanted to talk with you about an RFI that we received, and we were answering some questions, and they asked a certain question, and we answered in an unexpected manner, right? And
Right.
required a whole lot of explanation. What was the question? And then what do you think they thought we were going to say? And then what did we say?
Yeah, so this is a theme that we're starting to hear. A lot of folks are doing assessments of how they want to manage or control AI that's being brought into or built within the organization. And we got as one of the many questions, uh, do you train AI on our data? And of course, our answer is, of course we do.
Mhm.
And of course, this triggers the, I guess, prototypical response of, well, oh my gosh, then aren't you stealing my stuff? And aren't you gonna,
Yeah, isn't that bad? I mean,
right?
it's a reflex, right? Because all AI is just Gen AI. I mean, that's what I mean, that's my perception of what people perceive.
Right. Right.
And so they're used to pasting data into a public LLM and they don't want it consumed. But the question is really not appropriate because of course you want to train AI on your business. That's how it gets better.
Right. That's the problem. We've got to get a little bit more nuanced about the notion of training AI models. Um, you are you are not going to get AI to get that cognitive enterprise notion or the ability to understand your point of view and perspective on things enough to do things on your behalf if it doesn't learn from your data set. And even better, actually from the behavior of your people. So I actually had to put in that document, I'll do you one better. Not quite. I wrote it more diplomatically, but basically, not only will I train AI on your data, I'll do you one better. I'll train AI on the behavior of your people. And both of those, of course, with the absolute tenancy security, non-use in other customers' AI, never published anywhere that is irresponsible, just like any other data that we are responsible for shepherding, um, we will obviously not do inappropriate things with it. But the yes, on its face, there's a notion that if all AI is Gen AI, fallacy number one, then the last thing I would want to do is have custom built AI models uh, on my data. Well, actually, you do want that, don't you? But you don't recognize that that's how you what you get. So the fine tuning thing comes in, and people will ask us, "Can you fine tune a model based on our data that is only ours?" And it's a very limited use case when you'd want to actually fine tune a large language model. We have to understand the difference between third-party AI that has no business seeing your data, lock down those public access LLMs, get it under API keys. You put some guidelines in place, maybe even put something in front of those LLMs to establish and maintain those guidelines. Good idea. Um, and then there's AI from a specific vendor that you're working with. In this case, right? That would be in this case, this is our AI. You got to make sure that they take all the normal precautions that someone would, especially if you're using it in certain use cases. We do not build AI that makes decisions or problem solves. Um, we use both third party and our AI as features or capabilities that can be woven together in a fabric of people systems and your custom AI. So that's the third one, right? Your custom AI isn't your custom AI unless it's learning your data on your data and on your people. And if it does that, then it not only understands your perspective today, but it continuously retrains and continues to observe your perspective going forward. That's the magic that allows all three of those to become the real platform for AI and transformation of that. Because without any one of those three, you've got some challenges, right? You, of course, we want to leverage third party AI and its capabilities. You also want to select vendors that have done specific work that is particularly useful to you, and you don't want to build that yourself. But then your is this customer worthy of the discount? Can I expedite this order? I think in this podcast, we've used many of these types of examples. There's
Yep.
dozens and dozens we could give you. Those are all incredibly wrapped up in this particular use case and this particular point in time and this particular perspective that your organization already has, right? So that's where that comes from. So yes, we will definitely train AI on your data, but they'll be your models. It is your data, your model. Another one of those questions, what do you do with my data once our contract is ended? Because I'm sure that it's just like they just have this feeling that their data is like it ran away and they don't know how to get it back. And it's like they're gonna put up the lost data dog, lost data sign like the like a puppy that didn't know how to get home. And you just I swear these assessments just have this kind of feel of I'm so lost with this and I'm so nervous about doing this and I just want to say no. But I've put an assessment together to hopefully catch you so that I can say no. And of course, I walk right into the trap with, yeah, of course, we're going to do right. So we'll just for anybody who's not following me being so obtuse here, you need AI built on your data. It's half of what you're going to deploy. If you don't have that, you're not going to accomplish transformation that AI can provide you. And those who do will transform in a much more meaningful way. And so you want to be one of those, right? You want to be one of those organizations that has figured out a way to be much more empowered than just leveraging third party capabilities. And by the way, they're getting, better and better all the time, but they're only going to go a certain distance.
Yep. So, John, one thing we've talked about, like, why do you categorize emails for intent? Why do you use categorizers to, make it, or regressors for decisions? So, let's use a little different example. So, everybody's talking about agentic platforms and that you need multiple agents who are purpose built for a body of work. And we do this in Krista all the time. Like, if people ask me, it's like, well, how come the Krista on your website always gives really concise, perfect answers about Chris's functionality? It's like, well, she is only trained on our website. She's only read our white papers. She only knows our technical details. So she gives a really specific positive answer. And so that would be a agent which understands how to answer questions about Krista. Now, on the other side, what we have to make sure people realize is you want a categorizer, machine learning AI in front of multiple agents. Say I have an agent that knows about your company. I have a different agent which can understands how accounts payable works. When you're paying your vendors, you could have a different agent that understands accounts receivable, how to interact with your customers when they're paying you, and say a fourth one, internal HR agent. So you really wouldn't want to just throw all this data into one agent because you would get weird answers because it wouldn't know the context of like net terms for payments. Is it accounts payable or receivable? Are you talking about expense reports, payments to a person in HR? Are you talking about or payments of a vendor, right? So
Mhm.
you actually want four agentic agents there, but you want a categorizer. You want some machine learning in front of that to say, okay, let me route this to the subject matter expert to handle that. So how do you explain that to someone that really that is something you want to train first
Yeah.
on the
Yeah.
subject matter, but before that, the categorizer, so it gets to the right agent?
Yeah, so this becomes, are you trying to flood your company's network with a bunch of new UIs for all of these little chat body things that you gotta figure out which one you use for what, and then you end up reflecting that same thing when 4 different organizations interact with your customers, and now they've got 4 new user interfaces to interact with for, with you virtually. You really don't want that, but you also need the nuance of when we're talking about accounts payable, there are certain things and ways we want to talk to customers, and we don't want it to sound salesy. and we want to be quite precise in certain things, and we don't want to be fuzzy in the way we interact, right? And clearly, you made a great example of receivables versus payables because the language is so the same. You wouldn't want the potential semantic switch between contextually payables related information going to someone who's actually talking about receivables or vice versa. So you have
Yeah.
to isolate these. You need to give different instruction, different guidelines, different goals. All of that becomes a better outcome in each of those different four you gave because you were able to say at the start, all right, here's an incoming dialogue with someone. The context can be, I know who that is, and therefore I know which path to take. Or it could be the nature of the question or the email or the whatever. Therefore, I know which path to take. And each of those paths allows us to then say, all right, now I know the specifics around the instructions I want to give. I know the personality I want to give that agent. I know the, pardon me, the T's and C's, if you will, of what I have to do and certain subject matters that I have to be super careful about how I answer certain questions. And I even, on certain questions within each of these domains, I don't want an interesting answer. I want an absolute bite for bite, literal, this is what we say. When we get this question, this isn't about variability and how nicely or cool can we say it. This is exactly what we say because this is compliance or policy or any number of things, right? You don't get any of that if you don't recognize that in our own minds we do this already, right? We switch context all the time and we do it by classifying the item or thing or activity that we're about to endeavor. And when we do that, we automatically know here's the frame of reference and the way I'll speak and what I'll speak from and the knowledge base of all of the knowledge I have upon which I'll draw. AI agents will have to do the same thing. They will not be effective without it. You do that with a classifier that is built on your data. That's why we took this whole loop because only you behave that certain way with your customers, prospects, partners, employees. Only you speak certain ways with those folks. Only you understand the tone and the type of interactions that you'll have. And you won't be able to just go find one on the street or go across the street and borrow your neighbors and bring it in and plug it in, and it's going to get it right. It's going to get it right some, right? It's going to get it right a little bit. And the hardest part for customers when we've gone down this dialogue with them is they'll say, well, wait a minute, why wouldn't I ask a Gen AI model? They can figure stuff out like this, right? Why wouldn't I just prompt a Gen AI model? Why do I have to do this all model building stuff? Well, it's like, well, you don't. Krista does. You don't mind if Krista does a lot of work, do you? I mean, come on, let it do some work. But why wouldn't I just prompt a large language model? Well, the answer is twofold. The first is they aren't that good to begin with because of the whole thing that we're talking about here. They don't have the nuance of the way you speak and the what you mean by those things and the way your customers have interacted with you. They just don't have it. So they're not great to begin with. And the best part, number two, is they're not going to get any better. There is no continuous learning. Oh, let me repair that. Or no, that's not how we say that. Or that doesn't mean that. It means this, that becomes it getting better. And the only and the smile, I'm trying to close the smile and I'm gonna have to apologize for somebody. But the you end up in really awkward conversations when someone's convinced, no, 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 I can still do this because I can always go into the prompt and I can say, but if they say specifically this, then this is what this actually means. And that's sort of the same thing as continuous training. Like, no, that's spaghetti code, only you just reinvented it
Yeah.
inside of a prompt. I mean, come on, guys. We don't we you're not gonna get there with that, right? I mean, because what if they use a different word? And you
Yeah.
literally said if they say quote this, then it means, well, right? So let's not turn prompt engineering into the next horrifically bad programming language,
Yeah.
right? Um, let's use the right tool for the job, especially if you have the skill to leverage that tool because it's been surfaced in a product that you can actually, anybody can do.
Yeah. So when you talk about that continuous training, what it makes me think of is as you're trying to explain this to a customer, they make payments in the HR system for expense reports and for payroll. You make payments in the accounts payable system, but The categorizer does give you statistical confidence. I think it's a question about payroll. I think it's a question about employee expenses, or I think it's a question about expenses of a factory paying their electric bill or water bill, right? But like you said, at first you may have low confidence and there may be a follow up. Okay, I think you're talking about paying a phone bill for a person in their house who's working at home versus paying a phone bill for factory number 7. But over time, if it's a categorizer and you prompt them and say, "Ex please tell me, did I get this right?" It will get better over time, right? Because it will be able to distinguish the language
Yep.
of the phone bill, electric bill, because both of those are valid expenses, but
Mhm.
they're completely different rules, right?
Yes, and a real world example, we did a voice bot for a public utility, company, and, our fluid voice, delivery of Krista, and the and of course, people get on the phone and they say, "My bill's too high." Okay, well, can we start with who are you, right? Um, and is this the commercial account or is this the personal account? And is this the account of the many you might have that you're actually calling from? Or maybe if it's L, maybe is the one is associated with your account? Um, you know, these folks, they get it all, right? And I know you folks who manage call centers, work in call centers, you know, God bless you. I mean, it's you just look at some of these call transcripts, like, you know what, the light's out on the corner, and you guys did not come to get it to fix it yet. Like, okay, well, can we start with your address? Are you actually a subscriber? I mean, are we even in the service zone for that particular lamp? Um, y- we again, we're incredibly powerful machines. Our brains are incredibly powerful. We stitch things together contextually really well. And large language models don't get to do that because they keep forgetting. Every time you have a great conversation with one, they sort of have to forget it and have a new conversation. And even that's actually changing a bit, right? I had a great interaction a couple of days ago where Grok, it happened to be, um, referred to an other conversation saying, "Oh, you're still working on that problem from a few days ago when you were blah blah blah." And I thought, "Wow, that's pretty interesting." So it's being prompted really short summaries of the many conversations I've had, and what it probably did, totally guessing, reverse engineering versus from the this side of the screen, if you will, is it was identifying the fact that um, from all of those different conversations, it did a quick scan and thought, "All right, this might come from, this background might help," and actually pulled that into context, which was cool. But of course, for the millions of subscribers to the electric company, and it's you don't get that, right? You don't get it. What what we do is we put that, in this case, classification in front of it, and we say, "Okay, I get the idea that you need to talk about your power bill, your issue with the power bill, but from before I could get anywhere with that, there's certain things, therefore, I need to know." And that can be designed very well if you classify all these inbound activities. Of course, call centers do this, right? They all have a pie chart or a pinwheel on here's all the types of things we get. These are all the types of issues we deal with. And then there's the other that is, a billion other things that those guys have to handle. But in that 80/20 rule, they actually know, and I can solve this problem, but this is what I have to know from the customer first. I can solve this problem, but this is what I have to know from the customer first. And if we do that work before we ever go to a RAG solution or an orchestration solution or whatever, we've actually solved most of the context challenge. We've actually solved most of the things that would cause outcomes to fail by getting really good at knowing exactly what we would already do, right? Like, "Hey, how can I help you? I'm about to apply classification technology in my head to what you are about to say," right? The lights out. Like, "Okay, well, let's get the things I need before I ever go to a screen," right?
Yeah. So John,
No one's gonna Yeah.
and I mean, you guys kind of covered a lot, and I'll sum it up with like, humans are better at lateral thinking than computers or LLMs, right? We can think sideways, right? Because we understand the context, right? But I would imagine that, Chris, in your example with the payment, right? So you had payables and accounting and expenses. if those organizations deployed their own agents and there wasn't an opportunity for lateral thinking, it's just doing this, right? So that kind of defeats the purpose of the classifier. The classifier would route the request to a
Yep.
certain agent, but if I had too many agents, I wouldn't need that. Like I fear that people will do it that way and they don't even get the opportunity to have AI
Oh,
learn across their business.
so so trust me, people can't will never remember that there's 4 agents and how to get to them. People can't remember how to open, you know, outlook.office.com to read their Outlook email. They can't remember that simple email or portal.office.com. So expecting them to remember there's 5 or 6 agents, there's different web pages to get to the different agents, it'll never work. You're gonna have to think, I want these different agentic platforms or agents which are subject matter experts, but I do need to have a categorizer to route on your behalf. And that way, and you want them to all be in the same platform in reality because you want them all to have the same look and feel, but have the same personality features. Like, well, I can do this in one, I can't do this in the other one, right? You want a common agentic platform across disciplines, but it is important to have the traffic cop or like it. In the olden days, you had a receptionist when we went to office buildings who knew everybody in every department, and you would ask them, "Who do I talk to?" and they would know.
Yeah.
You want that person to be a categorizer, an AI agent.
Yeah.
Where does he come up with examples like that? How do you come up with an analogy like that? A couple of quick things to add on to that. The first is, even if we do know Outlook.com and we do know the 4 agents, we're gonna have 40.
Yeah.
How do we keep informing people and getting them to remember? No, it's not, we don't have 20 now, we have 21. We came up with this Thursday there'll be another one. This is this is us trying to catch up to technology and it not helping us. This isn't technology understanding people, right? That's the opposite. It's the opposite of that. So you really need something to make it so that the insulation of the constant change is not something people have to constantly deal with. We describe that as human friction, right? And we're totally trying to solve for human friction, yet delivering ridiculous velocity of technology change. That is a really good example Chris brought up around how you're not solving for human friction, and yet you're introducing crazy complexity via technology change, and you're just going to keep overloading people with, oh no, you don't do that anymore, you don't go there. We have a customer we talked to a couple of months ago who's like, no, 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 we solve our human friction problem, and they put up a screen. It's got like 18 literally gray boxes with a couple of words in it. And it's you just go here and then you figure out which of the agents you want. They described them as agents at the time. These were all AIs, and you click on any of these and it takes you to the right one. It's like, okay, well, those look the same. Well, they are pretty close. I mean, that one's commercial real estate for this and that one's commercial real estate for that. So it's like there. Sort of case closed. But no, they were actually quite comfortable with it until we explained to them. You realize that in another couple of years, there's going to be 800 blocks on that board. I mean, you've solved it for the moment, but you've actually introduced an approach that will actually not work within a reasonable amount of time. It's not like I'm going to retire and it's going to be okay, and then those guys will deal with it later. It's not even that, right? I mean, we're talking 24 months, and you're going to have 800 of these. If you have 8 of them now, 800. So the
Yeah.
other part, the other part is you're right about the get all of this type of work under one umbrella. You can be leveraging loads of systems and third-party AI with it. But if you're not trying to orchestrate it all under one umbrella, there's no single context for you to be able to get the software to have the kind of lateral capability that you just described, Scott. Because if all of this stuff is siloed, then as soon as you're trying to understand, how do I empower an AI agent to solve a customer support problem, let's say, but all it knows is how to manage tickets and a few simple, documents. It is not going to have the context of the entire organization to best achieve outcomes, which is better supporting them, keeping them from returning stuff, getting them to, fill out the survey, whatever it is. You're going to have much greater opportunity to get much richer outcomes if you don't silo them. And that's why we've got this whole initiative around Krista Enterprise Understanding. It's so interesting to see just how incredibly powerful our AI orchestrating a bunch of other AI, right? Third party and custom AI of our customers, when it is all able to access a broad understanding of that organization. So here you are in a customer support arena, but you have the ability to say, how do we position this product that this guy is talking about he can't use? How do we position it in sales? Okay, well, does it help this way? Like, oh, I didn't realize that was what I was supposed to be doing with it, right? Or I mean, it could be anything. The crossing, the ability for that agent to try to solve problems for you outside of its silo is in fact why we always say it's such a truism, right? The sum is greater than its parts. Well, if you're doing all this as one-offs, it's every one little part, it's no sum. But you know full well if you brought it together, it'd be more valuable. So we're really all the way back to the beginning, yes, we're going to train lots of AI on your data, and it's your AI, and it's not useful even to others. The IP inside might be if they're trying to steal your secrets, but the AI itself is not because it represents you. It's how you think about it, how you can, and what your organization's capabilities are, and how they reflect into your decisions. We're in the process right now of bringing into Krista this whole notion of solving problems. um, we do so many things in AI right now, but this is, I don't want to call it the highest order so far, but it's certainly one of the most interesting. Where with that enterprise-wide context, you can ask our agent to solve problems that typically you would think are not even readily available to AI to solve because it has that wide perspective. It can we're actually well, I got to admit, our CEO, Michael, I swear he spends half his time in front of Krista AI asking you questions and sending everybody the answers. That's what I mean. I get 2 or 3 of them a day. We all do. And the reason why Scott's joking, laughing right now is because he's getting them too.
And he told me he asked Krista how to do my job and then sent it to me. It was
Yeah,
hilarious. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But he asks Krista how he should do his job, sends it to him himself. I mean, he reads it as himself. But that's exactly what I'm talking about. And he actually did that, and he sent it to me what Krista was saying he should do for his job, and it was a whole double down on the strategy that I'm seeing you're coming up with, and blah 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 blah. The only way that AI would have had context for that particular strategy was to see through sales and customer success, and to be very much aware of my product roadmap. Only way because we never even described the strategy the way that the AI actually brought it back to us as. The enterprise context that allows you to ask that system, or even better, for that system to solve problems
Mm.
with that level of understanding of your organization is unbelievable. And it's totally where we go. And it marries all three of these types of AI, right? AI, Krista can already provide you third-party AI that is obviously a great growing segment, at least on the Gen AI side, and the bespoke AI that is going to really allow you to transform these outcomes of your own.
Yeah, I mean, that is super interesting because then, taking it back to when you were talking about the prompts, right? So whoever you were talking to said, "No, no, no, I just add this context to
Yeah.
the prompt." To come up with an answer about the strategy and everything would be an incredibly long prompt, right? You have to provide it so much context and so much data, but having that readily available and that content being automatically consumed, right? No one
Mhm.
puts that data in there other than Krista herself. So that's super cool.
Yeah. So what would I need to know in order for me to solve that problem? Well, I might need to know about history of the backlog on that project. I might need to know payment history of that particular customer. I may need to know what were the last few meetings we had with them and what were they talking about. I might need to know any number of things, and the reality of that being all woven together in such a way that not only does it resolve our curiosity, which is not, it's not a that's not a fair way to say it, right? We don't ask questions for curiosity. We talk about that, right? But if we're asking questions and we have a nice broad knowledge base to get it, we do get interesting answers and we get useful answers and we can do stuff. But even better when AI can ask that question is in an attempt to solve a problem, right? Because that's when you've actually been able to elevate the level of execution of what AI can do to transform for you. And of course, I would be remiss if I didn't say within guidelines and guardrails, within the confines you provide it, with a transparency report, with confidence scoring on everything, which is fundamental to how everything that we do is. And whether you're a Krista customer or you're trying to roll your own and do something, or you're going to use company XYZ, this is what at least in my view, where you need to be targeting your capabilities to go and where you need to be taking your organization, or if you're a builder of stuff, where you should be building toward this. I can't imagine this is not the rational next step. So if it is, and you're still thinking if I can get my little siloed thing into there and then, I'll only worry about its data and it won't, and it doesn't have to integrate with all that much, I think you're going the wrong way, my friend. You know, we all, I've been there. 30 years of IT of let's see how little I have to connect it to other stuff, and we'll just have people rekey, or they can generate a file for me that I'll import. Right? Those those days need to end.
Yeah, that's, so I think I know it's one of the first 10 episodes we did of this podcast, and it was called "You're Going the Wrong Way."
Yep.
And, I mean, you're describing exactly what we said, a couple of years ago, when if you're still doing it the way you're used to doing it, you're going the wrong way. You're gonna end up with with the 800 agents, you're gonna end up with, they all, they're not even on annual contracts anymore, right? They go month to month. So it's gonna almost be like a Tetris game trying to put these things together, and it's just not gonna make you go any faster. It's gonna make you go slower, right? Your
Right.
technical debt is just gonna exponentially increase, and
Yeah.
then we'll put a
Yeah.
tariff on it.
Cognitive overload.
We should put a tariff on technical debt.
There you go.
That should be a
There you
nice
go.
one. Um,
Yep. You actually triggered one more thing, and I know we're kind of wandering in this particular episode. The the that 800 agents is not necessarily a bad thing, right? It's absolutely not a bad thing. You want all that. What you'd better have along with it is the orchestration that is not your people. Because we going all the way back to episode 1 or 2, it was people are your current integration strategy, right? You got a bunch of tech. We all do. We all need to leverage more. We all need to get more and more in tech into organizations in order to be effective. And we better not be stuck doing it an old way that is 3 times the cost or one-third the speed of a competitor, right? So we're all hungry to deploy technology more. Heck, it's true even in our business. We're using agents inside our programming IDEs and in our data science work and in our research and stuff like crazy. And if we weren't, we would be operating at a velocity that is not consummate with competitors, and that would absolutely that would incredibly impede our ability to continue to do what we want to do, right? What we need to do.
yeah.
We've got to do it. Everybody has to do it, right? The point is, if your integration strategy of all this AI is people, that's the most fundamental. You're going the wrong way. So if you're going to get to that fabric or that orchestration layer or that we described as what Krista's fundamental mission is to handle that, right? And that's why these bespoke models are key, because that's the key to them getting things done without you having to sit in between all of them and say, now do this, or yes or no, or enough or not enough, or we can or we can't, or we should or we shouldn't. You need AI doing all of that so that all of that stuff in the middle of all of the system or AI steps is in over time, short periods in most cases, AI can absorb the perspective of the organization and do those too.
Awesome.
Again, within guidelines, confidence scoring, transparency, and all that good stuff.
All right. Well, appreciate it, guys. We'll wrap it up because we just keep going and going.
Right.
But I appreciate you guys talking about that we actually do want to train AI on our data. And until next time, see you guys later.